Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the
Good evening.
welcome to the May 19th Finance Subcommittee meeting of the Brockton School Committee. We will first, I need to read the statement regarding open meeting and virtual meetings. So we'll start with that. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to that order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from open meeting law's requirements that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This Finance Subcommittee meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 12. The public can access this meeting via the link www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. All right, and next. All right, we need to do a roll call vote to operate under the revised open meeting law. So I'll take that vote now. Let me see, is the mayor with us? Let's see, I don't see him. Okay, and then myself, I'm a yes. Miss Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello? Mr. Minicello?
Sorry, yes.
That's okay.
Forgot from you.
I'm gonna start saying Bueller. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Sullivan? Yes. Bueller?
Yes.
Bueller. Okay, thank you. And the superintendent non-voting.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Next thing I need to do is take another roll call to establish a quorum. So again, we'll call the roll. Let's see, I don't see Mayor Sullivan. I don't believe he's with us. Myself, I'm a yes. Miss Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez, thank you. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Superintendent Thomas?
Yes.
All right, he's non-voting as well. Okay. So, so this evening we have 3 items on our Finance Subcommittee agenda. First being the FY 2020 budget, followed by the FY 2021 budget, and finally new business. Mr. Superintendent, I can either you or Aldo want to take over and walk us through the first issue.
Yeah, so I'll have Aldo update you on this year's budget FY20 and what's going on with that and how he's making out as we're getting through until June 30th. So I'll let him discuss, and he's also had discussions with Troy Clarkson, the CFO for the city, and Mayor Sullivan.
Great.
Good evening. Is my mic on? Okay, good. So on the FY20 budget, myself, Mike Bandis, Chris Correa, we continue to go through culling every line item, seeing what funds are left over that we can take Right now, priority is to make sure we get enough money to meet payroll all the way through the year. But we do know there'll be money left over in the transportation budgets since we're not paying the transportation vendors. So in trying to preserve some of that money for next year, spoken to the CFO of the city, and they've spoken to the law office, and I've identified close to about 3 million is about what's left, and hedging that we may end up paying some of that to the transportation companies if we give them something for liability insurance they carry and some other contractual items that we know they took out on our part, whereas we know their unemployment insurance covered their unemployed drivers. We're looking and discussing with Troy, looking to maybe give back about $2 million to the city, which they in turn, if we relinquish those funds, they will put that money in the stabilization fund of the city, basically into the city's savings account, and make that money available for next year's budget. The mayor at this point can't say he's going to just give it all back to us, but at least it goes back into their accounts. The way that municipal accounting works, any money that's left over at the end of the year has to flow through the accounting process, gets certified by the state in late fall. Usually it's around early November. That becomes free cash, which is available for the following July. So we don't want to wait 18 months for this money. So if we now approve this money going back to the city, the mayor will file a request to the city council to basically remove this money from our budget and put it immediately into the stabilization account. If they do that, it's available next month, July 1st, to use. Actually, it's available anytime because it's now in the stabilization account, anytime for the city to use for our benefits. So I'm looking to see if we can get a motion and approval of that tonight to put those funds back. In a few weeks, if I identify more funds, we may look at doing the same thing. Any money that I can put back into what's called our circuit breaker account for special ed, I'm going to look at putting that money back also. That money can carry for a year in there. That's a separate revolving account that we have for those funds. So we're trying to preserve every dollar from this year to help us with our budget next year.
Aldo,
Yes.
you had said that the mayor hadn't committed that he was going to give all of that 2 million back to us.
Correct.
Have we got a approximate commitment of, 80%, 90%, 50%? I mean, do we have any?
Not yet. I think the mayor hasn't been able to say because he still has no idea what's going to happen on the state side. But the school department budget is basically half of the city anyways.
Right.
So in the school department budget has to meet foundation. So when the Department of Ed sets the foundation budget, the mayor's going to have to move whatever dollars he has to us to support our budget. So it could every bit of it could come back to us, on his end. So I thought he'd be on tonight and we would discuss it further, but at this point, I know I have at least the 2 million. Like I said, in the coming weeks, I hope to have, more that we can put aside for next year.
Any other questions or comments from the members of the committee? Mr. Rodriguez.
So Aldo, so there's no guarantee that, that money can disappear totally, correct?
Well, it's in the city's savings account. Right now, I don't know, there's $3 or $4 million in there. This will be added to it. And then when they set the budget for next year, if the mayor gets enough money from the state, he doesn't need to touch it. It's just there. It's city money anyways. All the busing money is city money that came to us to pay for busing that goes back to the city. So either way, it's going to be there. Like I said, it's not appropriated anywhere. It just sits in a savings account.
Okay, so this is busing money anyway. That's not Chapter 70 money.
It's busing money, and if I don't spend it by the end of the year, it has to go back to them.
Oh, okay.
And I can't save it for people's salaries for next year.
Right.
But if it goes to stabilization, the mayor and the city council can appropriate it to anything.
Right. Okay. But it was, I missed that part that it was busing money that they had sent us anyway.
It's busing money.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, you had a question.
Yes, I did. Aldo, you had mentioned the school, the first student has applied for some kind of money or funding.
They haven't
out of
applied.
that 3 million?
They call me every week wanting to know if we're gonna do anything. And I, every week say to them, I'm waiting for state guidance. The state had some proposal they were putting through on their end. And I haven't seen anything come out of it, where they're basically gonna grant us permission to negotiate some sort of a payment. That's what I've seen. So at this point, the state has still done nothing on that.
Do you have any idea, Aldo, what that payment would be? Or how much it would be?
I don't, it would be, when the time comes, we'll sit down and discuss and look at what they are paying for, liability insurance, for, vehicle insurance, maybe even something towards their electricity, their office that they maintain in Brockton. So, maybe 10%, 15, 20. It all depends on how it works out. I don't think we'd go over 25 or 30. I don't think we'd definitely go over that, but it's going to be something reasonable. It's going to be simply to, help cover some costs. It's not our job to keep them in business, although the state's been urging us, the Department of Ed's been urging us. So it'll be something that will come back to the committee. The committee will decide.
Well, if the Department of Ed is urging us so much,
And the figure is
maybe,
just unknown at this point?
It's unknown at this time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I mean, if the
I can jump
department-
in quick.
Yeah.
The, so early on, it was probably the second, it was actually early, probably near the middle to, it was the end of March, the Department of Ed did send out guidelines recommending us to pay transportation vendors. Obviously, we talked about this. We did not follow that guidance because we did not think it was the place of the Department of Ed how to tell us how to spend non-net school spending. That's really not their purview. So then there was, and we said all along with the mayor and you and Aldo and Troy is basically, unless we get clear guidance from the Attorney General or the governor's office, there was no way we were going to pay. So now there's a bill pending that would allow us to negotiate, but that bill, it was talked about, it would be out 2 weeks ago. It has not come out yet. So, we're still holding firm, and we'll obviously revisit if that bill is passed. And obviously that would be with your discussion and approval if there's any payment made at all. And the reason the Department of Ed did that, I think it was more for the smaller vendors to keep them in business, just in case we were going to come back to school at some point this year and, have enough vendors to, transport, especially our special ed students. And I think that's why they put the guidance out. I just think they really put that out premature. That was something that should have come out from the governor's office or from the, as law, not something that just pay. But a lot of districts have paid this money, which is very surprising, and paid a big chunk of it, which still amazes me.
Springfield has not, Plymouth has not, Fall River has not. We've all spoken. They've all agreed that this is not a bill that we can pay or are going to pay, so.
Right, not without some changes in the, guidance from the AG or that law passing,
Exactly.
plus,
On our construction projects, when a project begins, we require a surety bond from them. The bond might cost them $5,000 or $10,000. Once the project starts, they submit that bill immediately. We pay that bill because they got that on our behalf. So that's why I feel like an insurance payment is something you can justify and pay. So, and even if we cancel the project, we still pay them for that bond because once they get it, it's non-refundable. So we make that part of our project. So
makes sense. All right. Any other,
I have a question.
Mrs. Sullivan?
I just have a question for Mr. Petronio. Aldo, could you update us on the busing situation as compared to last year? That problem that we were in with the busing money?
Well, last year we were short on busing money, and the city came through with the 6 million we were short. That money is this money.
Okay.
So it's still this same year, and that's the money we'll have now, this leftover funds at the end which again, we're looking to return to the city. And hopefully, it's going to come back the next year. I mean, we'll look at the legal limit on the minimum amount of busing we have to provide, and we'll look at the current busing that we do provide. So
So we won't be short this year.
we won't be short this year, no.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
So and we continue to cull through the rest of the accounts, trying to, again, identify, any funds that we haven't spent that are not necessary for the rest of this year. We've shut off all spending other than mandatory bills. We're getting bills from electric bills, gas bills, some of the out-of-district placements. Those bills are being processed and paid, but as far as any school purchasing anything, we're not allowing everything. Any money we can save to pre-purchase for next year or to put back into a revolving account, that's what we're doing, to pick up as many expenses as possible. And this Thursday, this week, I'm meeting with Troy Clarkson, the CFO of the city. We're going to put together and discuss all of our bills related to COVID that we've spent so far. And we've spent a pretty good amount of money. We're going to submit those to the county. So I think by Friday, the county will have some document in place that we can review of how to submit our bills. We'll submit every bill. I'm going to submit the fact that we've given out, almost 6,000 laptops, and the fact that they're out. I'm going to try and argue the fact they need to be replaced. And I know the county receives quite a bit of money, and hopefully we can recoup everything we've put out and hopefully end up in a better position than when we started.
All right. Yeah, I think it was 90 million that the county got and made a big show of they were going to handle it. So hopefully they are able to handle it and we can recoup some of our costs from it. Any other comment on this topic from, Mr. Sullivan, you had your hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one, you might have already answered it, Aldo.
Mhm.
Is there any money left for the 2020 budget? There's nothing to carry over?
Well, the 2020 budget's what I'm tying out right now. So, the biggest portion of that is payroll. If I end up breaking even on payroll, which is what I'm trying to do, trying to make sure we have just enough money, because the unemployment costs are starting to come in. People are applying, they're starting to get approved. So those are coming in. But if I can end up even there, I should hopefully have a couple million left over in our ordinary maintenance, our electricity, our gas, our athletic accounts, our high school graduation account, everything else. So hopefully I have enough money left over there that we can, prepay some expenses like copy machines, copy paper. We've got a lot of chemicals and cleaning supplies we have to buy for for the fall. So I can begin by buying as much of that as possible. And I can put some money back into our for special ed. We have the, oh my God, I forgot the name of it. We have our special ed account that receive our circuit breaker money that goes into. I've been paying bills out of that account, but I can put that money back and cover the bills with local money. And that money I'm allowed to carry for another year. So I can put some money back in there to offset our sped costs for next year. So I'm trying every way possible to be able to either prepay or put money aside for next year.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Great. Anybody else on this matter?
Can I ask a question, Mark?
Of course, Mr. Minicello, go right ahead.
What positions are going to unemployment? I thought that we kept most of our positions.
We've been, well, I haven't seen the actual positions come through, but what we had myself, Kathy Moran, and some of her staff, we had a conference call with the gentleman at the unemployment assistance office who handles Brockton. And apparently the way it's out right now, the way it's written is if you have a reduction in hours that brings you, that you lose 33% of what you were making prior to this happening, you can apply and you'll receive some funding. So for example, if you had an extended day after school and a third of your salary was that extended day, if it's more than 33%, you will be receiving some unemployment. So any program, night school, extended day, any of those programs, those grants you worked under. With the Department unemployment assistance does is they have all your quarterly earnings. They receive them from us every time we file. So you'll make your claim, they'll go back and look at your current paycheck and look at your past paychecks. They go back over 52 weeks. If they see your pay has been reduced by 33% or more, they grant you on a scale so much money. And what happens is you might even be eligible for $200, but as soon as you're eligible for the 200, you're eligible for the 600 from the feds. That doesn't cost us any money, but that gets them that funding. So there are a lot of people starting to file for that.
Okay, thank you, Aldo.
Sure.
Great. Mr. Rodriguez, you had your hand up as well.
What's the total number of laptops that we've actually handed out, like the concrete number?
I don't know if Mr. Jim Cobbs is online, but it was supposed to be close to 6,000. Dr. Cobbs.
Oh, oh yeah, Jim's here. I want to say.
Sorry, I muted. What's the question?
Total number of laptops that were sent out.
Well, initially it was 5,000, then we increased that. We're probably close to 6,500 computers, laptops we've given out now. Because we continue to meet some needs for special needs students and homeless students and do computer exchanges for some. So we can, since the initial issue, we've done 2 more larger size. So it continues.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else on this matter? Okay. And I believe, Mr. Petronio, you were looking for a motion on the 2 million to transfer $2 million back to the city?
Yes.
All right, does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have, hang on, let me make sure
I can read off the motion if you want, Mark.
yeah, why don't you go ahead, read off the motion so we can get that fully on the record. Thank you.
Motion to move. I have a $2 million. Aldo, is that right? Or is it the 3 million?
Non-net school spending.
Motion to move $2 million of non-net school spending money to the city. Back to the city.
Okay, all right. And we have a motion made by Mr. Sullivan and properly seconded by Mr. Minicello.
Second. Yep.
And I will call the roll. Let's see. So I'm a yes.
So the motion would be to return, correct? The motion is
Yes.
to return the. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, the motion is to return the $2 million from non-net school spending back to the city of Brockton. All right. Then Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Okay. Is there any other item? I have an item for the, oh no, wait, I do have an item to bring up, but I want to make sure everybody, the superintendent, did you have anything else to bring up for FY 2020? No.
No,
Okay.
sorry, Mark. No, that's it for us.
Okay, very good. Well, this kind of ties into the whole budget picture. So moving on to item number 2, FY 2021 budget. But this really kind of ties into both sides of it. Do we want to look at offering, we've offered early retirement incentives in the past. Is that something that maybe we want to consider doing? Just, kind of anticipating some rocky finances here. Does it make sense to look at doing that again this year? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth us looking into it. Actually, Kim Gibson brought this up to me about 2 weeks ago, wondering, because she's seen some other, talked to other union presidents around, and other districts have been offering that. And that's something we probably haven't done in a couple of years, but during those really lean years, probably about 3-4 years in a row, when we had that $12 million deficit, the $16 million deficit, we did offer the early retirement incentive. That people did take advantage of it, all unions, and people at the top of the salary scale, if they choose to retire, obviously, and then you replace with a first year employee, obviously you're looking at some pretty significant savings.
Okay. Do we maybe, I mean, if the consensus on the committee is that something you'd be interested in exploring, we can have, Aldo, would you be willing to see if you can pull some numbers together for us, figure out what we could offer, how many, as you've done in the past, we can look at the finances of that. I mean, is that something everybody would be interested in at least seeing the finances of? Don't everybody answer at the same time? So, all right, why don't we do this? Aldo, why don't you put those numbers together for our next finance meeting, and then we'll present them to the committee, and then we can have a more in-depth discussion from there.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, great. All right. So in regards to item number 2 on the agenda, does Mr. Petronio or superintendent want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, it's FY21 budget. We really still have no information. We have been on calls with the mayor and the state delegation. At this time, we do not have a timetable of when we're going to look and get a Chapter 70 number. We're hoping it's sooner than later, but right now we do not have an estimated date on when a Chapter 70 number is going to come out. They continue to talk about a 112 budget month to month. That's, never a good thing, because you don't know where you're going from each month. So we really don't have any new information to share. We are still waiting to see where that Chapter 70 money is going to fall, because we do not have an answer with the $4.3 million we're getting from the CARES Act through Title I. Which is coming directly to the school department. We do not know if that is going to be deducted from our Chapter 70 number. So that's still a big question mark.
Okay. All right. And
Has that question been asked and they just won't commit to an answer one way or the other, or has it not even been touched?
No, we've asked it several times. We've asked the delegation. We've asked, Aldo has asked ad nauseum to the Department of Ed. I've asked in the superintendent meetings with the Department of Ed. Aldo asks every time when he's on with the school business office in the Department of Ed, and they really won't commit to an answer.
Right.
exactly. I have a call later on this week with Department of Ed, just a few districts, and they're basically going to ask us how they think we're going to spend that money. So I think they're trying to feel us out. My answer is going to be to maintain services, to continue jobs. It's not for anything new. There won't be anything new coming from that money. So I think I've got to talk to my counterparts to make sure they understand that this is what they're looking at, trying to determine what these funds are really going to be used for.
Right. Well, and if they, if they want schools open for September, but still maintaining any shot at any kind of distancing at all, the last thing we need to be doing is increasing class size. If they're going to start stripping money away from us, anyway, I know we got to give them time to work it out, but 1 and 1 is not adding up to 2 here. We can't, do the distancing in larger classes. That just doesn't work. So, but all right, we'll play that by ear, and hopefully it pans out to something a little, something reasonable.
So even though we don't have any direction on that, I was telling the superintendent today that I think I need to prepare a level services budget, get it to the school committee, in a week or so. We need to vote on it and send it to the mayor as our requested budget, even though we're probably not going to get it, Even though they're gonna do a 1/12 budget, I think we still need to do that due diligence and send that budget in. So at least we can show that we've created a budget and we filed it. We're not gonna do a wish list. We'll do our level services. In there, there'll be money for, PPE, there'll be money for laptops, but we'll send that budget in so that it's in the mayor, because the mayor has to submit his budget to city council before the beginning of June anyways. So
Right.
I'm gonna look at getting that done for you.
All right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. We still have to put a budget together. We still have to vote on a budget. Whether it gets changed after the fact is a different story, but we still have to have some kind of a budget. So that'd be great if you could put that together.
Yes.
Any comments from any members of the committee on this topic? No? Okay. All right. In that case, item number 3, new business. Do we have any new business to come before the Finance Committee? No? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn Finance.
Motion to
adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn by Mrs. Sullivan, I think started first. And do we have a second?
second.
Or, okay, all right, we'll do ASAC was the motion and Sullivan is the second. Okay, I will call the roll. For myself, I'm a yes. Miss ASAC,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, Tim,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Superintendent Thomas, non-voting.
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay, we are adjourned and we'll be back at 5:45, I believe, for our public hearing on school choice. Thank you.